Trey, the prosecution has argued throughout that John O'Keefe never made it inside that house to the party that was going on, that Karen Reed hit him with her SUV as he was standing outside and where he was found dead. So how critical is this witness for the defense, given we know there was a dog in that house? We know that the homeowners used to have a dog who has since been rehomed. How critical is this testimony for the defense, and what does the prosecution have to do here?
It's very critical because the defense has put up this alternative theory and they need to substantiate it. They need to corroborate it. Even though they don't have the burden of proof, the jury has to believe that this alternative scenario could have happened. And if they don't, if they dismiss it, then we're getting closer to having fulfilled the prosecution's burden of proof. So this is very important witness. This is coming down to the science. And the prosecution really has to go after this witness. They really have to challenge the fact that there's no scientific standard for dog bites necessarily, that she wasn't fully informed, before she made the decision. She jumped to it. Those are all very important, and they're going to harp on that.
All right, Trey, thank you. And I want to bring in ABC's Ike Ajachi here and civil trial attorney Tre Lovell for more. Trey, I want to get your legal take on what we just saw, because she is being cross-examined right now by the prosecution, and yet they seem to be asking these open-ended questions where at times she's able to expand and seemingly give more evidence in support of the defense here.
Yeah, it's going a little bit both ways. But I think the prosecution's doing a good job in terms of kind of providing an inference that she jumped to this conclusion. She didn't consider statements that were made by admissions by the defendant. She didn't consider some of the physical evidence. If there's this dog bite, why is the tail light pieces and glasses, why are they there? And the jury's looking for an explanation. But at the same time, I think that she got, a good explanation in terms of the admissions, which is a little bit of a surprise, but that certainly helped the defense.
Trey, the part that stuck out to me most was her describing these injuries are parallel lines, and in order for that to be caused by a taillight, you would need them to be projected in such a way that they hit exactly in that form, which, in her opinion, clearly she says she thinks is close to impossible, if not impossible. How impactful is that, generally speaking, for a jury when you hear an expert say something that's that visual and easy to picture?
It's very effective. And what is happening here is you're having two different scientific opinions in terms of what happened. And when the jury's going to try to met this out, they're going to take what each expert says, and then they're going to look at the corroborating evidence and see, which opinion is more credible. Does that make sense that these fragments had to line up a certain way to make these marks? But then again, why are the fragments there in the first place if it's a dog bite? And then remember the accident reconstructions for the prosecution. He did tests. He had a vehicle come and was able to determine how the impact would be in a way that was consistent with an impact. So the jury's they're going to have their hands full on this.
This is a witness the prosecution did not want on the stand at all. They tried to fight this testimony.
They really did, because this is a witness who completely really takes the attention away from the narrative that the prosecution is trying to put forward, that the only way that John O'Keefe could have died was at the responsibility of Karen Reed. Here, this is a pivotal moment for the defense. They're trying to lay out their conspiracy theory that John O'Keefe got into some kind of altercation inside the home of Brian Alpert. There's possibly a dog that was involved, and then he was dragged outside onto the front lawn where he later died. Having this person on the stand and the prosecution, the defense rather, having her testify for the defense really does allow that room for reasonable doubt that maybe something else did happen here. And we're seeing her on the stand being asked time and time again about how much she knew about this case leading into her idea or her diagnosis of what happened to John O'Keefe. Meanwhile, it's almost as if she's getting more time to really strengthen and bolster her claims. The fact that there was a dog, by saying, hey, listen, I thought of all the possibilities of John O'Keefe standing, kneeling, maybe halfway down, maybe his arm in front of his face. And there's still not really a way I can see that a tail light fragments could make those injuries on his arms that she says is consistent with a dog bite. So it's really seemed to maybe backfire a little bit on the prosecution prosecution having her on this stand for so long, really getting a chance for her to elaborate her opinions.
Trey, she has also increased her certainty in some areas where before she said, it seemed like a large animal, possibly a dog. Now she seems pretty certain it was a dog. She didn't know for sure. Couldn't say for sure if it was teeth or claws. Now she says with a lot more certainty that it was a dog bite, these injuries. Does that help or hurt the defense that she's coming back now with more certainty than she had in the past?
Well, I think it helps the defense in terms of attacking her credibility. Why all of a sudden now is she more certain? What is she seeing to make it more certain? We're at a retrial, and one of the things to watch when a retrial is differing testimony. And it does happen because you learn from mistakes. And maybe you come across different facts that you didn't know before. However, it's a strain on credibility when a witness is changing her empirical opinion later in the day. And they've really got to come across and explain why.
All right. Ike Ajachi, Tre Lovell, thank you both.